All right, go ahead and...
So you're bored? Make this conversation less boring. Go ahead. I'm waiting.
How often do you think about the Roman Empire, Brian?
Is that your best effort?
Sure.
In any case, you're not particularly adding to the conversation. You've been disrespectful this entire time. You're entitled. You're rude. You have TikTok brain. You cannot stay focused. We've only been live for an hour and a half or so. I'm going to ask you to leave.
Okay.
So get up, get the f*** out. Dead ass podcast. Do OnlyFans.
As if. Hello and welcome to my series As If, your feminist companion product to the podcast. As someone who has been debating feminism on TikTok for 2 years now, I can see there's a very unique setup when it comes to men holding spaces centered around anti-feminist, red pill, incel, or heavily religious themes. There are many men who hold these spaces so that they can have access to women. I think we can all agree on the setup the podcast employs. They'll have the host, some red pillars, maybe some conservative talking heads, and then maybe some religious figures. And these are all against OF and Instagram models. The only time they have women outside of that context is if they're conservative, like Candace Owens or Lila Rose. And obviously they have this structure because their arguments will go unchallenged or be poorly challenged. And I'm not saying Instagram or OF models aren't competent, smart people. If you don't have the experience, if you don't know the arguments, and if you don't have the information, you're just not going to do well. The only exception they have to this rule is Farah Khalidi, and our girl brings the smoke. Honestly, don't care about the context of the video that I'm stitching because Brian's statements made it irrelevant. He actually made a moral claim by saying because she's an OF model, she's a...
Did I say that?
This
Yes.
type of abuse is
No, I said... I didn't say because she's an OF
Oh yeah,
model.
that's true. He just said you
Obviously,
do
I
all
just-
that.
women to be the privileged.
That implies.
And you follow for Instagram model or a worker. These men consider you to be on the bottom rung of the social hierarchy. However, if you're on this podcast, it's obvious to see that you've actually claimed some level of notoriety or economic success. And within the red pillar, there is a special type of anger because not only do they view themselves as the oppressed gender, but now they see what they view as the most social class of women even achieving high economic success, which obviously they think is undeserving. And I think why so many men are interested in this content is because it not only allows them to cosplay masculinity, but essentially to correct an injustice within their own mind. And I think traditional masculinity is very much centered around male supremacy, so they've manufactured this system where it's very unlikely that they are going to lose as a way to prop up a facade of intellectual superiority. And on top of that, they get to humiliate and degrade the undeserving privileged class of women in a way they view that is very justified. And as someone who has been in spaces like this, with men like this, not only do they justify the behavior, the biggest red flag is that they enjoy it.
Okay, there are a couple questions there.
Sure.
I think I stepped away when you specifically referenced this term.
Yeah.
So the clip that, which, and by the way, you said you didn't care about the context at all. So context doesn't matter to you. So she could have just like stabbed a family member and I call her and I'm in the wrong.
When I was referencing the system of, I wasn't talking about that specific instance, but how the podcast is structured.
You were reacting to the clip and saying that that was
intrigue of the overall strategy that the podcast employs.
Sure. So that clip in specific is not or
no, I wasn't referencing that clip as the
so what is
aspect.
What is it about the show?
When we talk about when men hold red pillar spaces,
Is this a red pill space?
Red pill, incel, manosphere.
Which one of those?
conservative.
Okay, which one of those am I?
I would say red pill.
What? How do you define red pill?
That women are the privileged gender in society.
That's red pill?
That's what red pill philosophy is that women are the privileged gender.
Women are the privileged gender.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll grant that.
I would dispute that though.
That women are the privileged
Now
gender,
that's what the red
or that's
pill
what red
says.
pill is.
Yeah.
What would you consider red pill?
The red pill is just a series of descriptors that are trying to identify the distinction between the way women and men act.
So, what is it about the show?
I think when you have a panel to discuss certain issues and then kind of try to humiliate them based on their career choices or based on certain aspects of moral prescriptions, that is a form of harm.
Is any time you disagree with somebody, is that always you humiliating them?
No.
So what would be like an example of humiliation?
I mean, I think calling, essentially when you have these spaces to discuss certain aspects and then essentially categorize someone as
I thought you said you didn't have a problem with the clip.
I mean, that specific space, I think misogyny is a form of, and so when you're holding a space to be misogynistic and experience hostility towards women, that is the main purpose of it.
Can we define misogyny first?
Yeah, misogyny is the hostility towards women and girls for stepping outside of their patriarchal prescribed gender.
So what if they don't step out of their patriarchal prescribed structure, but they're like falling into the patriarchal expectation of women, but you still like women? That would not be misogyny?
I think it would be hard to quantify like how someone hates women.
I hate women.
I'm just saying
Do you have to hate all women?
Let's say they do.
Wait, I have a question for you. What if like a leftist male, like conservative women who were pick-me's and who were like adhering to patriarchal expectations of women? Would that be misogyny?
No, the only exception I would give is if they wish them aspects of patriarchal violence. So if like a leftist creator.
What is patriarchal violence?
Like, great.
That couldn't occur under a matriarchy?
Well, that could also occur between two women.
Yeah, couldn't.
Well, is a form of men to assert domination over women.
Unless it's women doing it to women.
Right, but I'm sure we both agree that is a gender-based crime.
Let's try to use.
Gender-based crime.
No, I don't agree that that's a gender-based crime.
I mean, we even discussed earlier, like within the military, that women are going to be more likely to experience crime, right?
Yeah, but that's a different claim than it's gender-based. Gender-based means it affects, like pregnancy is gender-based. That's a gender-based thing.
That would be a gender-based claim because women and girls are more disproportionately likely to experience it. That's literally the definition of it.
So when you say gender-based, it just means more of?
Essentially, it happens to someone because they are a specific gender, or it disproportionately happens to a specific gender.
Okay, so by that definition, I'll say that, well, no, actually, I won't even grant that. So even by that definition, no, I don't believe that.
But I don't want to delineate because I do want to go soon.
Yeah, we'll keep it focused.
So I just want to, I am keeping it focused. I just wanted to clarify, I do think if a leftist creator wished upon a conservative woman, that would count as a misogyny because it is a form of patriarchal gender-based violence.
Okay, so misogyny is not just hatred of women. There's other qualifiers.
I think the hatred of women is just not really a good working definition because it centers the perspective of the person rather than centers the experience of women and girls. And then I think we need to see that it also acts as a policing force to police women and girls' behavior to conform to a specific gender prescription.
Okay, so we're using a lot of buzzwords here. We're talking about oppression, humiliation, degrading. These are things that you allege I do or Andrew does on the podcast.
I think in general is a misogynistic space, yeah.
It's a misogynist. Okay, so what is an example of something done or said that was misogynistic on this podcast?
I mean, what, do you want me to pull up tape and point to it?
Just one thing.
I mean, would you say that originally you did have like OF girls and Instagram models?
What do you mean originally?
I mean, I don't know if that's your guidelines now, but
guidelines. I mean, so
or who you're looking for as dating show a part of your show. Like
That's like 15%.
Hold on. Are you
I
saying
think.
you can only be misogynistic towards OF girls?
No, not at all.
So I understand your question
I'm
as it
asking
pertains
if that's
to my
your specific
question.
demographic when you're having guests on.
How would that pertain to misogyny when a woman who doesn't do
Because-
OF can be victim of misogyny? Why does it?
Right, because obviously OF and women who engage in work under patriarchy are seen as undesirable. So having that specific clientele is meant to shame and humiliate them for being on OF or so on and so
Yeah,
forth.
so I'll answer the question. Of all the guests we've ever had, the representation of women who do OF, it's about 15%. So some shows there's more, some shows there's none. And we still do have OF girls who come on the show. I think it's actually decreased a little bit. There was perhaps a period where the representation of OF models on the show, was higher, but now it's maybe a bit lower, but they still come on the show. And then we have normal girls who come on the show. We have women in college. We have women who are professionals, women in the healthcare field. So we have all kinds of different women who come on the show. I don't think you've really answered my question, though.
What did I not answer?
So you were asking me, well, what are the kinds of women you bring on the show? I've just
I asked
answered
for
it.
specific demographics, and I
So
do think
how is the show misogynistic? Can you give me one example?
Well, that is one example.
Simply by virtue of bringing some OnlyFans girls on the show.
I'm meant to essentially shame and demonize work and saying that, you're low class because this is how you engage.
I categorically reject your presumption there that that's the reason we bring them on the show, to humiliate or degrade them.
Okay.
So your premise is flawed. What?
Brian doesn't actually think that they're necessarily or things like that because they do work. That's me.